Right. Uh, so, good afternoon and welcome to webinar 17 of SARNET. So today we have S. Vishwanath from BioMe Trust and Professor Polanki Sivaram, who will be facilitating the session. So without taking much time, and also let me just briefly say a few words about our facilitator for today, and he will introduce Vishwanath to the others. So Professor Sivaram has been a SARNET member and has been very generous in giving his time and expertise for the webinars and as a steering committee member of SARNET International inaugural workshop. And Professor, so without taking much time, and he's also part of NIRD Hyderabad and Panchayati Raj. So over to you, Professor Sivaram.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Dhanusi. Good afternoon to everybody. On behalf of SARNET and on my own behalf, I warmly welcome you all to participate actively in this webinar on design ideas and rainwater harvesting. It's a wonderful topic, I must say. I'll take great privilege and honor to introduce Mr. S. Vishwanath. He is a visiting faculty to the School of Development at Ajim Premji University, Bengaluru, Karnataka State, India. He teaches courses on water conservation, sustainable groundwater management, water reuse, and recycling. Educationally, he is a civil engineer and urban regional planner by training. He is having vast experiences. I must say that more than 34 years of experience in the field of water and sanitation. He has designed and implemented many water, wastewater, rainwater harvesting, and ecological sanitation systems. He has also worked on policy teams for the writing of the Karnataka State Water Policy, a rainwater harvesting policy, and bylaws for Bengaluru city that is situated in Karnataka State of India. Wastewater reuse policy for Karnataka also he was the part. He was also an advisor for the National Wastewater Policy. He is also the Secretary General of the International Rainwater Catchment Systems Association. Yeah.
It's okay, Professor. Dr. Thanks, Dr.
Last but not least, he wrote a weekly column on water called Water Wise for 12 years in the famous English daily newspaper, namely The Hindu. His current interests include the integration of livelihood aspects with rainwater harvesting, wastewater reuse, and groundwater recharge. Presently, he is an advisor at BioMe Environmental Trust. Thank you so much. Firstly, we will have his presentation. Subsequently, we'll have questions and answers. Now, over to Mr. Vishwanath. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Shivram. Thank you to the organizers, Tanuja, Adar, Tanshri. And thank you to the audience for coming in here. I'll keep my talk very basic and brief. I'll share it over maximum of 20 minutes. And I will share some of the experiences that I've had with designing rainwater harvesting systems in the city of Bangalore specifically, but also in other places as I go along. So let me just share my screen, and I guess my screen is visible. And
yeah, yes, please.
So I'm talking about rainwater harvesting and design. That's the element that I'm putting forward to you first. So for habitations in the Indian context, specifically cities, but also villages, I would argue that we have six taps available for a city: pipe water supply, usually which comes from a far reservoir or a dam or a river. There's rainwater that falls on the city itself. There's surface water, which can be held in lakes, ponds, wetlands, and if the city is lucky, a river running through it. Groundwater, of course, springs, shallow aquifer, and deep aquifer. These are sources of water where you tap in through an open well or a bore well. Treated used water, water which goes to a sewage treatment plant, which can be treated to requisite standards and used for both industrial use, non-potable use, and agricultural use. And finally, the sixth tap is demand management. And this is the control of the tap where you try and limit demand based on several things like, for example, metering the water, pricing the water, and so on and so forth, and education and water literacy. So of the six taps that we have, in some cities are lucky to have desalination, and some in the far north in the Himalayas may have snow and ice as one of the other taps. But broadly, these are the six taps that are available, and I'm only going to focus on the tap, which is rainwater, for this particular talk. So what is rainwater harvesting? I want to just go back to the basic definitions because there's always the need for clarity and to understand what we are talking about. Simply put, rainwater is collection and storage of rain for future productive use. In the Indian context, rainwater harvesting has also been understood as recharge of the aquifer. In other parts of the world, it's called managed aquifer recharge. But in India, rainwater harvesting is also understood as recharge of the aquifer itself. Fundamentally, of course, globally, like I repeat, it's collection and storage of rainwater. And so what are the components of this rainwater harvesting? There's the catchment, which a designer has to deal with. There's the conveyance system. From the catchment, you have to convey the water. There's something called a first rain separator and a filtration system, where you filter the water for the quality that you need to store it longer. Then there's the storage itself. You can have storages as rain barrels, as pumpkin tanks. You can have underground sump tanks. You can have overhead tanks, and there are many forms of storage. And finally, there are recharge, and there are many ways of designing recharge structures. I'll explain some of the recharge structures I have worked with. So at a broad level in an Indian context, this is how a rainwater harvesting system looks like. There's the rainwater coming in from the pipe, first rain separator. The blue drum is a filter in this particular case. And after the filtration, the water is stored in a sump tank. And because the sump tank, underground sump tank, is of limited capacity, it may sometimes overflow. And that overflow goes to what's called a recharge well. And that recharges the aquifer from which you can tap it. So all components are here. There's the first rain separator, there's a filtration, storage, and recharge. Why rainwater harvesting? Well, it's broadly at a city level to supplement water requirements. It's not a complete replacement because we don't have that kind of a rainfall in many places or the investment capable of investing in large-scale storage. So it's a broadly, at majority of cases, a supplement to the water requirement of a household or a school or an institution or whatever is the consumer of water. Then you harvest rainwater to recharge aquifers. Many of our cities and towns, especially in the Indian subcontinent, also Sri Lanka, also Bangladesh, also Pakistan, there's a large dependence on aquifers, groundwater for requirements, and rainwater harvesting can supplement the recharge of these aquifers. One other interesting aspect that's coming in into urban areas is to minimize flooding, because flooding is now becoming an urban phenomenon thanks to climate change effect and global warming. But by harvesting rainwater at individual plot level, you can sort of minimize the impact of this runoff on the city pavements. And in particularly bad quality areas, like areas which are affected with fluoride, arsenic, and nitrates, stored rainwater can be free from fluoride, arsenic, and nitrate, and after basic treatment can be consumed for drinking purpose. Mr. Watson Chandrasekhar, who's also part of this conference, has many filters which have been developed to treat this. And one of the ways that you can do is to collect rainwater and filter that, make sure that it's potable, and use it to replace fluoride contaminated, arsenic contaminated, and nitrate contaminated waters. So what does rainwater harvesting depend on? Well, obviously it depends on the total annual rainfall, but not only the total annual rainfall, but the rainfall pattern. Cities and towns which have a distributed rainfall pattern, let's say in my city of Bangalore, rainfall is distributed over 8 months. We have 60 rainy days, but it's well distributed over 8 months. If you have a well-distributed rainfall system or a rainfall pattern, then it becomes easier to store water. You don't have to build large storage tanks. But suppose you're in Rajasthan or Gujarat, the northeastern Indian states, which are dry, where rainfall may occur over a single day in a year, or maybe 3 to 5 days in a year, then obviously you need to build large storage tank, because you have to store this water for productive use. One other interesting factor is rainfall intensity. As rainfall intensity is increasing, we need to design our conveyance system, the rainwater gutters and the downpipes, to combat this rainfall intensity, but also our filters. Our filters need to handle large volumes of rainfall. So rainwater harvesting depends on rainfall pattern and rainfall intensity, rainfall distribution. The catchment area is most crucial to rainwater harvesting. The catchment area needs to be clean, and both the quantity of runoff and the quality of runoff has to be assured, so that the harvested rainwater is fit for use that we desire from it. Then the biggest challenge with rainwater harvesting, as most rainwater harvesters will know, is the storage system. The storage is the most costliest part. There are efforts made to reduce the storage by building ferrocement tanks and many other forms of storage, but storage determines how much, the cost of storage determines how much we can afford to harvest rainwater. And when it comes to recharging of the ground, recharging of the aquifers, the recharge potential of groundwater, what is the capability of the geology of the soil to take and absorb water and hold on to it, will determine how rainwater harvesting can be done. In my city, for us, it's of great interest that if you have a small plot of land, it's a semi-arid construct where there's 970 millimeters of rainfall, and if you have not built on this small plot of land, the lot or the plot size, then when there's an average annual rainfall, the surface runoff is usually 15%. About 10% recharges, that is, it goes into the ground below 1 meter, but up 75% of it stays in the soil profile of 1 meter and gets evapotranspired or goes into the air through evaporation or evapotranspiration. But the moment that small plot of land is built upon, the surface runoff now increases to 90%. The recharge increases to or reduces to 5% because we almost paved the entire area, and evapotranspiration drops from 75 to 5%. So the aim of rainwater harvesting is biomimicry. Can we design our system to hold on to the water, which is now in excess of the normal runoff from that plot of land, right? So therefore, you leave certain portion of it to get to the watershed to become a common asset. But 15 to 90, it's the responsibility of the institution or the building to make sure that 15 to 90, that 75% of the rainfall is either stored or recharged into the aquifer, so that it does not cause negative damage to the environment. That's one of the ideas. And so the ideal models of designing rainwater harvesting systems would include a daily rainfall pattern for about 10 years at least, and a daily demand consumption pattern. And you draw a balance between the daily supply, which comes from the rainfall, as well as the catchment area, and the daily demand. And then you arrive at an optimal storage system. There are complex, not very complex, but complex enough Excel models which are available for many cities, whereby you can optimize the demand, especially for large industrial buildings and large institutional buildings. So it's a question of supply and demand and drawing a balance between supply and demand. Now, how do we go about designing it? Ideally, every roof should be a catchment. If you're able to design a roof to be clean enough, like this roof, as you can see, so that the surface runoff is high and the quality of runoff is also good. What you can do, as we do in these kind of schools, is to, in this era of global warming and climate change, to make sure that these flat roofs are painted with a white insulating paint. Two advantages. One, the rooms stay cooler by as much as 5 degrees to 7 degrees in many cases, but also the runoff is much, much better. It goes up to 98%, and the roof can be clean. So you design a roof to act as a good catchment, but not just for rainwater harvesting, but also for reducing the heat inside the home. If you're in a hot, arid climate, or even in a city where the temperatures can go up due to urban heat island. The next step is to harvest rainwater. And so one of the best ways is to begin simply by putting a rain barrel. A rain barrel is just a plastic drum, like you can see, which picks up the rooftop rainwater and stores it. And then you can then later on use it depending on the quality of the water that you have collected here and the quality of demand that is required. So for example, for gardening, you don't really have to worry about the quality of runoff. But if you're thinking about it for drinking, then perhaps you have to be sure that the quality of the water is good for that particular purpose. Rain barrels are easy to install, and one would recommend for the new beginner to start with a small drum. You're not going to catch all the rooftop rainwater that falls on the rooftop, but you're going to catch a substantial sum, and you'll start to get an idea of both the quantity and quality of rain that is occurring at your place or at your locality. So when we design these rain barrels to be on the terrace itself. The room that you see on the right is actually the staircase room, which is above. So you collect it at the terrace level on the top of the roof. Then you can run a pipe to your kitchen and you can take the water directly by gravity. So you can actually get the rainwater to come to your kitchen. You can then filter it in a basic candle filter and use it for drinking and cooking, for example. And this is energy-free water because the clouds have got the potential energy and put the water at the rooftop. So you can collect it and drink it. So rain barrels are now, we design them, we call it lifeline water, and we put it in these kind of terraces itself for the collection of the system. Now, the rain barrel quality which we have observed is because if you just keep the catchment of the roof clean, you can see the water in the bucket being collected. It's absolutely great water, high quality water. You can check for pH, and you can see a small bottle here. It's called the H2S wild test, where you check for bacteria. So if you do regular robust checking, you can determine the quality of the rainwater. And what we found is with simple clean catchments, the quality of water improves dramatically. And so this is what is happening here. You can put rain barrels at different places on a building, right? Depending on the rooftop, the slope and the incline of the roof, and the place that you have for it. It need not be large. It can be small 200-liter tanks, or it can be 500 to 1,000-liter tanks. In the Bangalore context of rainfall, even a 500-liter rain barrel, which is kept on the rooftop, can give you adequate water for drinking and cooking throughout the year. Right? Because the distribution of the rainfall is enough. It keeps topping up this 500-liter barrel, and you draw about 4 to 6 liters of water for drinking and cooking purpose, and that will be good enough to last you the whole year. So that's one good way of designing systems. Then, of course, there are the downpipes and pipes to collect the conveyance system. Thankfully, due to the market conditions, better and better quality of pipes are becoming available, better clamps are becoming available, and it's a question of designing it so that you're putting all the rainwater to one side of the building. If you slope the rooftop to the side where you're going to store it, it will save you a lot of money. And in this particular case, the school headmaster is operating the first rain separator, and the students are watching what first rain separator is. So this becomes both a functional device as well as a learning device for many people to understand. In this case, school children, but it could be adult citizens also who learn it. Now, filters are of many types. It's a do-it-yourself filter, which you see on the left, which is basically a sand, charcoal, and gravel filter, which you can just assemble at your own home. Or otherwise, in the Indian context, there are more than 40 different kinds of filters that are available of varying capacities and intensities of rainfall and various qualities of filtration. And they're getting better and better. But we still have to do a lot more improvement in the filters so that we don't lose water and the filtration job is done adequately. But luckily, a market is being created for rainwater filters. You can order it on Amazon. That's how a do-it-yourself filter looks like on the left. It can be just a socks tied to the pipe, or just a dhoti tied to the top of a drum. And this is good enough if the rooftop is clean, or as on the right side, you have something called a charcoal filter. And that's how a charcoal filter looks like. You have series of charcoal, crushed charcoal, and gravel and sand to filter the water and push it to wherever you're storing it. So filtration is something which is crucial and essential, because if you remove the organic component like leaves and leaf litter, then the quality of the water as it is stored over time stays to be better. It doesn't spoil. So if you don't have any organic contaminant, rainwater can be stored for years together, right? So that's the advantage you have. And so here you see in a school building, the first rain separator and a masonry filter. And on the right, you see ready-made filters, which have been put up. This is a government school where this thing has been done. Then the water is collected in a sump tank. On the left, you see a large sump tank at the school level, and on the right is a recharge well. The overflow from the sump tank goes to the recharge well. And again, a teacher is explaining to the students what a recharge well is, what groundwater is, and what is the quality and the need for recharge, and how do you understand groundwater better? How do you make sure that it works better for you, right? So recharge is now a common system in our city of Bangalore. I think we have more than 300,000 recharge wells. So here, Mr. Balasubramaniam is showing you rooftop rainwater comes in, there's a blue drum, and the blue tarpaulin covers an old well, a 40-feet old well, which he recharges with his rooftop rainwater. He's putting in about 200,000 to 240,000 liters of rainwater annually, and the well gives him all the water that he needs for the whole year. So you can have almost city-level water independence if you do good recharge and if the aquifer conditions are good for you. One more example of a recharge well, which is there in the basement. So Basically, you just need 3 feet diameter and 20 feet deep wells. So actually, you're occupying just 3 feet of your plot area or site area, and you really don't need much space if you want to do rainwater harvesting to recharge. Though, of course, the recharge conditions should be conducive for you. So what we have done in our city of Bangalore is we have made it mandatory for every building to do rainwater harvesting. And the mandate is that for every square meter of roof area, you have to do a 60-liter storage or recharge. And for every square meter of paved area around the building, you have to do 30 liters of storage or recharge. But if you don't do any paving or roofing, then that is allowed free for you because you're allowing the water to percolate into the soil. And the other condition is that the minimum depth of the recharge well should be 3 meters. The idea is that you should percolate through the hard rock and clay surface at the top and allow the water to infiltrate into the ground. This bylaw is based on the rainfall pattern that that you see on the right. It's a well-distributed 59.8 days of rainfall over 970 millimeters of it occurring. And based on that, you arrive at a bylaw. So every city can arrive at its own bylaw. How do you dig recharge wells? Here are well diggers holding soil which they've excavated from a well. Beautiful soil profile colors that you can see. This community of well diggers called the Manduvaddars have been digging well in our city for more than 1,000 years. It's a profession for them. They understand soil, they understand how to dig, they understand where to dig for water. So we're ensuring that they get a livelihood through this process, and we use their knowledge and skills to dig recharge wells. As you can see at the middle right figure is doing a recharge well. All these wells are being cleaned up or desilted by this well digging community. This is how a recharge well is dug. First, you dig a hole about 4 feet in diameter, about 20 to 30 feet deep. As in the center, you excavate all the earth out. Then you use precast concrete rings to slip them into the hole and then cover it with a grill on top as a safety measure. A team of 4 well diggers can dig a recharge well in 2 days, right? A 30 feet deep recharge well, 4 feet in diameter in 2 days. And then you cover it with a grill, as you can see on the right. And you can then link clean stormwater drain or rooftop rainwater to this recharge well to push all the rainwater into the aquifer. That's a design idea that we have for storm drains, especially from clean roads. There should be no sewage or solid waste in the stormwater drain, which you're recharging. Only rainwater should be there, and that will then recharge the aquifer. So campuses, institution buildings do rainwater like this one called IIM, Indian Institute of Management in Bangalore, where the clean road runoff is picked up and pushed into recharge wells, over 60 of them, and that's benefited the campus tremendously. What do you do at a gated community level? What you do there is, this is a gated community of about 36 acres and about 360 plots. Now, what would have happened is that because they're not connected to the city network, every one of them would have drilled a bore well. What the community did was came together and said, we'll drill 3 common bore wells, but each one of us will recharge. Yeah, so every one of them has made a recharge well. So we have 360 or 300 recharge wells, but only 3 bore wells to extract. They've connected the network and put meters to it, and they're pricing the water so that you draw only reasonable amount from the aquifer, and they have become net positive. In addition, they have put in a wastewater treatment plant and made sure that treated wastewater is then supplied to every household free of cost, so that it reduces the demand on water, and non-potable water requirement of the household comes from treated wastewater. Potable water comes from the groundwater, right? And so therefore, detailed calculations are arrived at to draw water balance at a gated community level. It can be done at a city level also for us to understand how we can manage rainwater better, how we can put treated wastewater to productive use. One other gated community, 220 acres, large gated community, 220 acres. What they did here was to identify recharge zones for the rainwater and discharge zones where wells are dug. So then they cleaned up the well. The one you see on the left is a dilapidated old well, but with enough recharge of rainwater at the top surface, the well water has come back to life, as you can see on the right, and therefore we are protecting the heritage, but also functionality. This dug well, this open well, gives about 1.1 million liters of water in a pumping cycle of 36 hours. It's more than enough to meet the requirement of the entire gated community. So if you do a good job of protecting heritage, doing good recharge, and understanding aquifers, you can meet all your water demand through it. So therefore, bylaws are being introduced, as I showed to you earlier, and it's now mandatory to do rainwater harvesting, wastewater recycling, groundwater management, metering in every house, and automatic switch off pumps. These are mandatory in our city. And in a particular case in Gujarat, what the people do is to collect rainwater in the month called Magha, and actually the water is called Magha, and it's used only for drinking and cooking. So this is an old tradition which is more than 2,000 years old, right? So these kind of heritage systems are also at play right now. And then the final thing that I wanted to share with you is how do you deal with schools, government schools? One of the great joys of working on water systems is to work with school children and school teachers. So in the school, what you design the system is the same: filtration, storage, and recharge, right? As I was showing to you. And you, in addition to rainwater harvesting, what you can do is to put water efficient devices, taps, right, with aerators, so that school children use less water in washing their hands or washing the utensils that they have at home. At home, what can you do else with rainwater harvesting? You can build eco-sand toilets. Eco-sand toilets or composting toilets are source separating toilets which separate urine and feces like so in a pan. And therefore, the water requirement for flushing is completely eliminated. And the stored rainwater lasts you longer because the largest demand at a household level, at a city or at a village, is usually for toilet flushing, right? So if you're able to eliminate that with composting toilets, your harvested rainwater lasts longer. You can also do grey water recycling, like in the system, using filters and using eco-friendly soaps and detergents. Again, the rainwater is good soft water. If you wash your clothes, use shampoo, and then you treat the grey water and use it for non-potable use, it reduces your freshwater demand. So eco-sand, grey water harvesting, and you can grow then paddy on the rooftop with the grey water that you have. So you can have a kitchen garden, a rooftop garden, which keeps your house cool, but also gives you the vegetables that you need. And you can actually grow rice on the roof, right? So there's that rice there, which is grown from eco-sand toilet as a fertilizer and grey water as the source of water. And you can work with school children, explaining, as my colleagues are here, in terms of quantity of rainfall, quality of rainfall, and quality of water in general. And children are very curious. If you work out a physical demonstration of what rainwater harvesting and what aquifers are, they are very eager to learn. They soak up the knowledge like sponges, and they're the great ambassadors for the future. So what we do is to give them a water quality testing kit and a rain gauge. So they measure rain every day and calculate how much rain is being harvested on the school rooftop. And with the water quality testing kit, they're checking the quality of the rooftop rainwater, but also the other waters that they consume, and they become completely water literate. And when teachers participate with school children, as they are doing here, that's the headmaster of the school and the children, during a rain, when the water is being filtered, getting wet in the rain, which I don't think urban parents will allow, but in rural areas, parents are happy that children get wet and understand the rain, and the teacher or the headmaster is explaining to them. It's an unforgettable lesson. That lesson will remain through them throughout their life, and they'll be the best communicators of how rainwater harvesting is to be done. Thank you for your patience and time. And I hope if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to address it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Viswanath. It's a wonderful presentation. Within short time, really, you made so many success. I must say that really we had upgraded knowledge and skills in the context of our rainwater harvesting and the designs and all. Now, I request Ms. Dhanusi, we gathered some questions from Google Sheets. That questions she is going to present. I humbly request you, please ponder that. Ms. Dhanusi.
Yes, Professor Sivaram, I'll start sharing the questions.
Please.
I can just answer one of the questions which has already been put up by Watson Chandrasekhar. We use the Jaltara field testing kits, Mr. Chandrasekhar and Chandrasekharan, for the water quality test, Jaltara developed by Development Alternatives. And you're right, we need to develop field level testing kits for arsenic also.
Okay. These are the questions. This is first slide. And how can architectural designs for rainwater harvesting be integrated into existing urban infrastructure, particularly in densely populated areas, to maximize water conservation efforts?
Yes. So one of the difficulties in doing rainwater harvesting in densely populated areas is you may not have the space for storing rainwater, or you may not have space for making recharge structures, right? So we have to work with the existing constraints and understand it. But one lesson we have learned is not to think of harvesting all the rainwater from the rooftop, but to start small from a component of the roof, just a small part of it, where you have an existing sump tank, an existing bore well, or an existing well. So what you do is then you put a filter and you lead this rainwater to this existing structure, right? And then you start by harvesting, let's say 20 or 30% of the rainwater possible to harvest. And as you do that, you learn how you can improve it, how you can improve the storage and recharge. But it may be that you will not able to harvest all the rainwater, and that's okay. But in new buildings, you don't have an excuse. We don't have an excuse. All of us should try and integrate rainwater harvesting to be able to maximize the potential.
Yeah, wonderful. Excellent answer. And what are some of the key challenges you have encountered in promoting rainwater harvesting, especially in the context of designs, and how can these, one second. Yeah, how can these be addressed to encourage wider adoption?
Yeah. So some of the architectural designs are simple. It's very commonsensical. You know what's happening in the Indian context is some of us believe in a concept called Vastu, right? Where we then put the water storage structure in the northeast portion
Yes,
of
yes.
the plot, right? That's a common practice and belief by many people, not all, but many people. So what you do is you make sure that you slope your rooftop, if it's a flat roof, in the direction of the sump tank, right? If it's in the northeast, make sure that all the slope is towards the northeast itself. Then you may need just one or two down pipes to bring it water down. And these down pipes are already closer to the existing sump tank, right? Then you put in a filter and you're able to store the water. So therefore, by just understanding where we're going to store water and what is the slope of the roofs, we're able to minimize the cost of rainwater harvesting. The second idea is to use the existing sump tanks, wells or bore wells, right? You don't have to create a separate one for rainwater harvesting. You have a good first rain separator, you wash out all the dirty and silty water, you have a good filter, you filter the water, and then you decide to store it in the existing sump tank or recharge the existing bore well or the existing well. These are simple designs by which you can incorporate rainwater harvesting. Of course, those who have the money, you can make it more aesthetic through using chains and other systems. And people are more than happy to have and display their rainwater harvesting systems if done well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Very nice answer. And given the diverse climatic conditions across India, what are some of the most effective and adaptable architectural rainwater harvesting techniques that can be implemented? Yeah.
Correct. So as one said, rainwater harvesting is dependent on what is the total volume of rainfall, the pattern and distribution of rainfall. Like in Sri Lanka, where there is a dry zone and a wet zone. In India too, you have dry zones and wet zones, right? But rainwater harvesting has been practiced by those people who've been in the most arid of conditions. So it's Rajasthan and Gujarat, which have done excellent rainwater harvesting. But the arrival of the modern piped water supply system, we have lost touch with rainwater harvesting. So therefore, one of the good things to do is to understand what traditional practices of rainwater harvesting were and to modernize it and put it in a context and work on it. But in other areas, we have to do rainwater harvesting as a completely new idea. For example, Chennai, which has done a very good job of aquifer recharge with rainwater harvesting, or Bangalore, which does a combination of storage and recharge, or Hyderabad, where in some areas you may not be able to do rainwater harvesting for recharge because it's very rocky, right? So you may have to store the water. So depending on the context, the local affordability, rainfall patterns, and aquifer conditions, we have to take a wise call to do rainwater harvesting appropriately.
So nice. Yeah, excellent. So ultimately, we must also use a traditional wisdom, isn't it?
That is always a path to us.
Yes.
It has to be traditional wisdom in the modern context.
Yeah, in the modern context. Yeah, wonderful. And some questions are, I think, it is a repetition. However, I'll pose it. How to maximize the capacity of the rainwater harvesting?
Yes.
And also tank size is the same, I think. Yeah.
Tank sizing for the rainwater storage in residential and commercial buildings. So tank sizing, as I was showing to you, is a question of supply, which comes from daily rainfall, a pattern that you have to understand for the year, and catchment size you have. Let's say you have a 100 square meter roof area, and let's say you get a rainfall of 20 millimeters, then you get 2,000 liters of water, right? That's your supply. But your demand for water may be, let us say, 500 liters per day. So your supply is 2,000, your demand is 500, you have 1,500 liters extra. So if your sump size is 1,500 liters, you should be able to manage demand and supply. What we've figured out is that a 60 millimeter rainfall for the particular area that you're in, let's say you have a 100 square meter roof area, a 60 millimeter rainfall is a good rainfall event to decide on. So if you have 6,000 liters storage or recharge capacity, then it gets you about 75 to 80% of the rain that will fall annually to it. But it varies from place to place. We have to understand the rainfall pattern and decide. So the tank sizing is also a question of affordability. Tanks are the largest components of cost in a rainwater harvesting system. It's not the catchment, it's not the pipes, it's not the filter also, right? It's the storage tank. So based on our affordability, we should design our tanks appropriately. And like I told you, 6,000 liter storage for 100 square meter roof area is a great storage size. One other advantage we can bring to play is we can use the same tank for pipe water supply, which comes from the city utility, as well as for rainwater harvesting.
Excellent.
Both can be combined in this tank, and that's how we arrive at a tank size.
Excellent, sir. Next, Dhanushi. Yeah, quickly, because the time is also. And somebody asked hydroponic farming with rainwater harvesting water.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's an excellent suggestion, because rainwater is so soft and so pure. For hydroponic farming, you need to add fertilizers to the water, right? Nutrients to the water, nitrogen, phosphate, potassium, 13 different micronutrients. Rainwater is able to absolutely absorb all these fertilizers, become a great fertigation for hydroponic farming. And even in polyhouses, polyhouses where you do glass houses or polyhouses as they're called, where you do intensive farming inside, rainwater, if it's harvested and stored and pushed through drip irrigation system, is a great fertigator. You can add fertilizers and put it through drip irrigation systems in polyhouses, and for hydroponic farming, it's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, can we receive a crosswave technology in rainwater harvesting at home?
So
that's another.
That's something that I need to work on, because I am not 100% sure. I try to understand what crosswave technology is, but I don't have an answer for it right now. I need to look it up and be able to give it.
I think, next question is already you have given the answer, that school rainwater harvesting.
Right, sir. But I'll reinforce the message again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, if we are able to convince our younger generation, the boys and girls who are in the 6th, 7th, and 8th standard, how scarce water is, how our ancestors managed with water, how we can manage water, and understand the quality and quantity issues with water in our current context, do that through actual physical demonstration of rainwater harvesting, and for school gardens, as you rightly pointed out, they learn the benefits of good organic food. They learn the benefits of good quality water for health and sanitation. You know that if you have good water and good food, 90% of your diseases are already handled, right? Yes, and the schools are the best place to do this kind of a demonstration.
Excellent, sir. And another question is the calculation of storage tank.
Yeah. So there are certain rules available. As I said, it's a question of supply and demand, and you have to do a daily water balance of supply and demand based on 10 years daily rainfall data, and you can arrive at an optimum size for the storage tank.
Yes, sir. Last but not least, need to learn about the household level techniques of rainwater filtration system, ensuring drinking water quality.
Yeah. So filtration, there are two aspects to filtration. There's a pre-filtration of rainwater before you store the water. And this is essentially to remove organic contaminants from rainwater. Still, there may be some amount of bacteria in the water. It's okay. The bacteria will not spoil the water. There's already studies to suggest that there's a bacterial die-out of bacteria when rainwater is stored. So that's the filtration before storage. Post storage, there's a filtration system, and that depends on what you want to use it for. Suppose you want it for use it for drinking, then you must look at Mr. Watson Chandrasekharan's filter. Any ordinary candle filter, which does a good job of removing bacteria, will do a fairly good job if you want to use it for drinking. If you want to be doubly sure, you can use UV systems. You don't need to use RO systems. Just UV filtration is good enough, even for drinking water quality.
Yeah, excellent, sir. And we have completed this one. And a few questions. I think, Mr. Chandrasekharan, he has posed one question, that is training to SHGs on rainwater kit, especially I'm talking about kit. Can you throw some light on that, sir?
He's a crusader, and Mr. Chandrasekharan is absolutely right. We need to get the water quality testing kits, which are reliable and which are cost effective, as much as possible into the market. And it's already saying that TWAD approved one by IIT Madras is coming into the market. That's very nice. We need more R&D, more cheaper alternatives, more reliable alternatives to reach most of our citizenry so that they become aware of it. And water literacy is a combination of quantity and quality. And that quantity and quality of understanding has to come to our farmers, to our housewives, to our businessmen, to our citizens as a whole, right? And it's a large journey of which rainwater harvesting is a small component.
Yes, sir. And with your kind permission, if any participants, 1 or 2 questions, can we, sir?
Absolutely, I'm most happy
Yeah,
to.
yeah. May I request participants, say, it is believed that 27 participants are taking part in this webinar. It's wonderful. I request if anybody is there, 1 or 2 questions they can pose, please. Directly they can ask.
Hello, sir. Hi.
Yeah, yes, please, Mr. Vivek.
Yeah, I'm Vivek. I'm working for ATRI, Ashoka Trust for Research in Ecology and the Environment. So I'm curious. So I'm from a hard rock region. So I'm from Tamil Nadu, state of, Dharmapuri district in Tamil Nadu. So my region is generally hard rock area. So what do you suggest how we can do or go for rainwater harvesting? Since you already mentioned that we cannot, correct me if I'm wrong, we cannot do recharge or something. But we can store the rainwater, right? So you already mentioned it. So what would you suggest how we can do the rainwater harvesting? The areas, regions like Hard Rock.
Yeah, so like I said, Vivek, the idea is my focus today is on rooftop rainwater harvesting or rainwater harvesting for domestic use, right? So in the domestic use context, you can use rain barrels, as I pointed out. You can use large 1,000 liter, 5,000 liter rain barrels, and you can store the water above the ground, right? If possible, if the area permits, you can make perhaps underground some tanks, which are no more than 4 or 5 feet deep, if there is no hard rock there, and you can store the water in those tanks. Or you can make the equivalent of farm ponds, which are lined, and then you can store the water in the surface, right? But if you also already have dug wells, right? In Dharmapuri, there are many dug wells which have been done through blasting. Then if there is excess water, you can push it into the dug well to recharge the shallow aquifer, right? And especially near lakes and ponds in Dharmapuri, the dug wells have water, right? Even though it's hard rock, there's water. So we have to appropriately design it for the local context and work with it, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, please.
Wonderful and informative presentation. Thanks for your presentation.
Welcome.
Yeah, again, I take permission from you. This is the last question, please. Anybody can ask.
No, most happy to answer. No,
There was
Okay,
one
okay,
question
okay.
from Mr. Chandrasekhar, Professor Sivaram, and Sitar. There's some questions in the chat box.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to say, because Sri Lanka being a small country and well rain-fed, the ideas what Mr. Vishwanath gave us really very basic, which we all have to follow as a mantra, like a national anthem. I think rainwater harvesting could alleviate most of the problem. But I'm also told Sri Lanka has both fluoride and arsenic issues as well. So what we do, we are trying to do something like Bunguru, where the rainwater is harvested and redirect into the borewell so that it dilutes further the arsenic or the fluoride content in the bore water, thereby making it more potable. So this is just an added suggestion I wanted to give, nothing beyond that.
Yeah. Mr. Chandrasekhar, it's not new to Sri Lanka. King Parakramabahu and Tanuja, everybody quotes him, is one of the first rainwater harvesters of the modern world who said, let not a drop of the rain go to the sea as a waste, right? Without it being used. So Sri Lanka has a very old tradition of rainwater harvesting, which is there. And they also have the modern systems which Lanka Rainwater Harvesting Forum has been putting in place with polytanks, especially in the northern parts of Sri Lanka, where there's the particular kidney ailment which has come. So Tanuja, you can correct me. These are places where rainwater harvesting can play an important role, as you said, with fluoride and arsenic contaminated areas also. So this effort is ongoing in Sri Lanka. It's all ongoing in India. And we learn from each other and push this message forward so that more and more people will adopt it.
Thank you, Vishwanath, for promoting Lanka Rainwater Forum. Yes, actually, yes, we do have not this chronic kidney problem in the north central part and also in the eastern part as well, and is spreading sometimes to the south as well. So we are promoting rainwater harvesting in those regions. To correct Mr. Chandrasekaran, we do have fluoride problems, but we don't have arsenic problems like in Bangladesh, thankfully. Yes, so but permit me to ask you another question, since you are from Bangalore. As you said, you have regulation and it's mandatory to have rainwater harvesting. Since when? Which year?
So 2009,
2009,
Tanuja, the
okay.
first law was in 2009. It's been amended in 2018 to increase the storage and recharge capacity, but 2009 was the basic law.
Okay, great. Okay, so since then, what percentage of people actually have installed rainwater harvesting
Yeah,
system?
so about 200,000 rainwater harvesting structures have been done.
Okay, right.
But it could be a lot more.
Right.
We are happy and proud in the Indian context that we are number 2 next only to Chennai, and we'll overtake Chennai in the near future. Mr. Chandrasekaran.
Okay, great, great. I wish you best wishes for that. Yes, so 200,000, yeah, much more than us. So as a percentage, would you know?
Yeah,
What do you
it's still less than 20%.
20%, right? Okay, great, great. So hopefully it will pick up from more.
No, so one of the dangers, Tanuja, is of course that pipe water supply is subsidized and is
Right.
very cheap. So people get
Yes,
it at
yes.
7 rupees 1,000 liters. So those who
Yes.
have assured pipe water supply don't go in for rainwater harvesting.
Sure, sure.
But those who don't have pipe water supply, who have to depend on tankers or their own bore wells, they inevitably push for rainwater harvesting, and it will become more and more in the future.
Does the government give any support to install a rainwater system?
So, like virtue and honesty, we think rainwater harvesting is its own reward. You should not be subsidized for virtue or doing good, right? We think that what we need to build, Tanuja, as you rightly know, is a responsible citizenry, right? We shouldn't infantilize our society in which we treat them like children, giving them lollipops or punishing them with a stick. We should act as mature citizens of a responsible city and do things which are good for ourselves as well as for society. That's the culture we have to build. Along with rainwater harvesting, we build a culture of responsible citizenry.
Agreed. Very, very much so. Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Vishwanath, somebody posed one question in the chat box. He mentioned, can I request for the rainwater harvesting standards?
Right. So the standards of rainwater harvesting depends on what use you want to do. Let's say you want to use it for drinking purpose. Then in India, there's a standard called BIS 10500, drinking water standards. I'm sure, Mr. Rahman, in your country also, you will have your own drinking water standards. So depending on the purpose you want to use it for, the standards are applicable. But suppose you want to use it for toilet flushing, then you don't really need to worry about any standards because it's a non-potable use where there's no direct contact, right? So depending on the use, let's look at and pick that standard and make sure that we adhere to it.
Yeah, somebody asked your email address and profile.
Yeah, I'm happy to share it with everybody. So I'm Zen Rainman, and generally I'm available on Zen Rainman and every medium, social media, but I'll share it. It's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere, Zen Rainman.
Yeah. Any question, please? Otherwise, I'll hand over to Dr. Tanuja and Dhanushi. Over to them.
Yeah, Mr. Raghu had a comment saying that he's doing recharge of bore wells.
Oh, 1 minute.
All filter
Yeah,
bore
please.
Yeah, but that's absolutely right, Raghu. So there's no one size fits all. I'm not focused on any technology or any product for myself. You do a design, whatever is most appropriate based on the condition and your experience, please adopt it. That's the best way to go ahead.
Yeah, I raised it because see, we find that digging a 30 feet, 3 feet bore is very difficult because we are in a coastal region. So that's why we find this as much more easy to do it. So we are doing it in about 100 schools now. So
wonderful, Mr. Raghu. Please, if you share it with me, I'd be more than happy to take
I think Joy from our organization has met you in Bangalore recently. Joy Ganguly. So,
correct.
Yeah.
So it's great work. And as you know, working with schools is always a joy because you're interacting with, and it's not only your colleague who's joy, but it's also the work with school children, which is a joy.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome.
Anybody, please?
Yes, I have a question.
Sonipan. Yeah, please.
Hello, Mr. Sivaram and Mr. Vishwanath. I have a question like, are there any issues when we mix the rainwater with the existing well, if we are using it for drinking purpose? Are there any issues arising
Yes, so
in
there
water
could be
in terms
some.
of water quality?
Correct. So there could be some issues, but the advantage is if you're able to filter the rainwater and push it into the well, what has been found in, let's say, saline areas where the groundwater is saline, rainwater is a fresh water, is sweet water, so it floats and creates a layer or a bubble, right? So generally it improves the quality of the well water. In fluoride affected areas and arsenic affected areas, it has the potential to dilute fluoride and arsenic and reduce contaminants, including in nitrates, right? So generally the effect is beneficial, but if you're not careful, you could end up with moss and algae if you don't maintain the filter well, and if you recharge badly, then you could potentially impact your aquifer. But then it's up to us to be responsible and to make sure that the design is good and that you recharge the well. Right. Generally positive, Soni.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Yes, please. Anybody? It's a wonderful session. And we have been upgrading knowledge and skills.
I just wanted to point out that the thing is, it's a simple step. If we begin, the starting trouble is always the big trouble that we have. We don't have to do everything all at once. Just do 5 or 10%. And once we get the taste of it, like it's like a tiger which tastes human blood, then you'll become a man-eater for rainwater harvesting. And you'll do rainwater harvesting at scale. But start, and that's the nudge that I wanted to push for people. Though it's a lousy metaphor to use about a man-eater, but it's the joy of doing rainwater harvesting, which is great. Which will help us a lot.
Yeah, it's excellent. It's a personally, almost, Southeast Asian, so 27 participants or 27 participants were there. See, this knowledge, actually, we have percolated, and they must give this knowledge to some other, then definitely it will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tanuja and my hair have grown gray doing rainwater harvesting over the last 3 years. So we will continue to do it till we can. And in fact, one of the earlier Prime Minister, the ex-Prime Minister, Mr. Dinesh Gunawardena, was a great proponent of rainwater harvesting.
Yes.
He was a big champion of it. And we've had hopefully a resurgence of rainwater harvesting interest in the coming days with climate change affecting us and the need for good quality water to come. Hopefully we'll push the message much ahead with everybody else. And Soni will start recharging her well with rainwater and tell me after about 6 months how it has improved the well water quality. Soni, that is the expectation from you.
Yeah, excellent.
Yes, actually, we are not doing like recharging wells, but we do make the ponds like a traditional pond. We do the restoration activities, so it is helping in recharge.
So you are a
with the
rainwater
collection
harvester.
of rainwater.
Yeah, so every one of the participants who's interested and is pushing it, Mr. Watson, Chandrasekhar, and you, Mr. Raghu, all are doing, Vivek, all of you are all participants of this rainwater harvesting movement, and we should just push for more people to do it because it's good for us.
Thank you very much, Vishwanath, for a very inspiring and enlightening presentation. We would love to have you for more time, to learn more from you and to get inspired. But since with a lot of other commitments, we will hopefully meet again for another session. Thank you, Professor Sivaram, also joining within short notice and obliging always to SARNET and Lanka Rainwater Harvesting Forum. So pleasant evening
Thank
to
you.
both of you and the participants for being there and making the session very engaging. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Shivram.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Tanshi, for everything.
Thank you, Vishwanath. Thank you,
Thank you.
Dr. Sivaram.
Bye-bye.
You've been comrade in promoting rainwater harvesting for many years, so hopefully we will do for many more years as
Yeah,
well.
we
As
will do, we will
Vishwanath.
do.
Okay,
And the only
thank
thing
you.
I wanted to tell, and Mr. Vishwanath mentioned that, his hair became gray. I'll ask my hairs.
Sir, if you use rainwater, it may come back.
Yeah, that is true, sir. That is true, sir. Thank you. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You too.
Namaskar.
Right.
Bye-bye.
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 Bye-bye.